From the Ear to There Travel Studio, this is the Ear to There Disney Podcast.
The Ear to There Podcast, it's time to start the show. Be sure to hold on tight, here we go. Exploring all the different Disney destinations. Ear to There, it's time to start the fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ear to There Disney Podcast. I am your host, Phil Gramlich. I am also the owner and the founder of Ear to There Travel, which is a Disney-specialized travel agency. It's my job to take away all of that stress, all of that anxiety, and all that time that it takes to plan a Disney trip so you can focus on the fun things like having a great time with your family and friends and enjoying the magic. And I do all of that. I take away all that stress, all of that anxiety, and I help you have the best possible time at absolutely no extra cost to you. So I will get you the best possible package price, the best hotel price, get the best promo for your trip. I will handle all your fast passes, your dining reservations, special event tickets, anything you desire. That sounds weird, but anything you can think up on your trip, I will take care of it. So let me be your guide. Let me be the dopinder to your Deadpool in Deadpool 2. Remember in the movie when Dopinder was going to... Come on, guys, you got to see these movies. Like opening weekend, let's go. I don't want to have to spoil it for you, but I mean, I have 3 kids, like 2 jobs, 2 podcasts. I mean, I'm all over the place. And I made time to see the movie over the weekend. All right, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but that being said, let me be your guide. Let me be your sidekick. Let me be the guy that hides in the shadows and helps. Well, I don't want to hide in the shadows. Waits in the shadows and helps you have just a phenomenal Disney trip. You can find this podcast, my blog, or request a free, no obligation quote over at ear2theretravel.com. All right, this is episode number 124 for the week of May 21st, 2018. So grab a drink, grab a snack, and as a famous mouse once said, on with the show. And of course, we're going to start this episode out just like I start out every other numbered episode, and that is with the What About Bob segment of the show. So in case you haven't been listening, just in case this is the first episode that you've listened to, I have the awesome opportunity to talk to Disney legend and Imagineer Bob Gurr on a pretty regular basis, and he comes on to answer your questions and my questions here on the show. And if you don't know who Bob is, well, Bob, let's put it this way. Bob is the kind of the last of the handpicked original Imagineers that were handpicked by Walt Disney himself. Bob started working on the Disneyland project in 1954. Of course, they had a few months basically to get Disneyland up and running. The first thing Bob worked on were the Autopia cars in Disneyland. He went on to build all kinds of crazy, amazing, phenomenal, just historical attractions like the Omnimover cars, including the Haunted Mansion, Adventures Through Inner Space, the People Mover, attractions like the submarines, the monorails, the Matterhorn, the Main Street vehicles, King Kong at Universal Orlando. The guy has done it all. He's had an amazing career. The question that I'm actually going to play for you on this episode is just mind-boggling. Or mind-boggling? No, it's boggling. So if you'd like to get a question into Bob, please call the voice line. That phone number is 267-551-1971. Or you can shoot me an email to phil@ear2theretravel.com. Or you can, of course, always post it on the Facebook page, or you could post it in the Facebook group. Hey, if you're not in the group, Ear to There Pod People, you should sign up for that. Anyway, every week, this segment of the show is brought to you by the Waltland Bus Tour. So each and every month, Bob Gurr takes a lucky busload of people around Southern California. You make stops in Los Angeles, in Glendale, and in Burbank at all the popular and important stops and spots in the history of the Disney company. but actually most importantly in the history and the life of its founder, Walt Disney. Bob wants you to come on a tour with him, so to go on the tour, to buy tickets, just head over to www.waltland.com. Okay, without further ado, here's the only Disney legend with his own theme song. And by the way, I bet he's seen Deadpool too. Here's Bob Kerr.
It's What About Bob? Bob Kerr, the legend, creator of the Matterhorn, the monorails in the Haunted Mansion. What about Bob, the Disney legend?
The UFO, the UFO at the closing ceremonies of the Olympics in Los Angeles. I won't ask how you did it, but can you tell me the story of how that came about and why a UFO was chosen?
Yes. I was working with Michael Jackson. The guy that designed his stage was a guy by the name of John McGraw. He was an absolute wizard at stage equipment for the top grade rock and roll artists. And everybody trusted McGraw because he was the guy that you really went to if you want portable stages figured out beautifully. And he had a draftsman with him. His name was Miles. So it was Miles and McGraw Company. Anyway, during the course of this Jackson job over the 9 weeks, John would talk to me a lot about stuff. And then he would say something like he used to say, if you were ever going to build a flying saucer, how would you do this? How would you do that? And it was just sort of off the cuff stuff every day. And then one day he said something like, he says, well, I'm doing a flying saucer for the closing ceremonies of the Olympics. And I'm having some trouble with it. And so now I knew why he was asking me questions. You know, if you were doing it, what would you do? And then I think right about the time the Jackson job was finished, I think within just a couple of days of it, I came back from Alabama. And then John calls me up and says, I can't do the flying saucer. I'm out of time and I'm out of money. I've got all the vendors promised to deliver their equipment and I can't pay them. Would you like the job? I thought, well, sure. We've got this company that built this equipment for Jackson. And then the second day, the financial people that are running our company closed it and went out of business. And I thought, well, okay, I have my own company, Gurr Design Incorporated. It's a California corporation. And I have some Disney friends. The son of my former boss at Disney, he's got a shop down the street called Brogy Elliott Company, and they got a shop. Well, I'll design something and Brogy Elliott will build it. Just simple as that. And this decision came about in like 2 days. So very quickly, I refined the design I had in mind based upon the McGraw questions. And this job was only 5 weeks start to finish. From the time John phoned up and says, you take it, he can't do it. I had to talk to all the different vendors for the different equipment that were going to supply stuff for it, and assure them that no, the jobs keep on going. You're not getting paid yet, but the Olympics Committee they're going to work through another company called USM Systems, and they'll handle payments for you. So I danced them for a couple of weeks, saying, "Don't stop working on your stuff because we need it." Okay. So the aspects of that one was the business side of it was so chancy to do it, where the engineering and the machine was actually probably one of the simplest things. Now, this thing was going to be 50 foot in diameter with maybe 400 or 500 lights on it of all kinds. It was going to have a programmable lighting panel that was a really fast assembled thing, and we're also going to have the electrical generator on it. It was going to run with a gas turbine from a company in San Diego. So there are a lot of different suppliers. And then there was a helicopter company that was already engaged to lift whatever it was we were going to make. And the whole job, just every day we worked on it, and we didn't have any really technical difficulties at all. You know, the design was simple. It was like a bunch of ring segments all yanked together with cables, all attached to a sort of a triangular center aluminum box full, with all the equipment mounted on it. And then I had to go buy some cables that would attach to the three corners of the center section, and then I buy a 100-foot cable that went up to the helicopter. We didn't have any trouble with it until we attempted to fly it, and then it collapsed in the air when the helicopter took off with it, because John insisted that it was going to have to look like a flying saucer, so that it's covered with fabric, silver fabric. And that was because David Walper was had the project to do the closing ceremonies, and a big name director. And that was the specification. And then when we were getting ready to test it, maybe like an hour before, I talked to a couple of young helicopter pilots, and they said, well, it's not going to work. There's going to be a lot of downwash in the helicopter. And I said, well, John told me that there'd be hardly any wash 100 feet away. So I had an inkling that what the two helicopter guys, the young guys were telling me was the truth. So when it fell apart in the sky, I was already prepared for a redesign by take that fabric off of it. So the helicopter pilot brought it back, set it down on the ground, and we crawled underneath really quick, looked at it, and it just everything was a snap together thing. Nothing broken. It just sort of came apart. So I could see there's no damage at all. We could put it right back together the next day. So David Walper walks up to me, and he shows me a $50,000 progress check written to me. And he says, you can't have this until you come back tomorrow and you fly it successfully. Okay. Speak about going fast under the gun. So during the course of that afternoon and the evening and during the night and early the next morning, I redesigned some ways to reconnect it easier. And then went to the aluminum company, bought all the aluminum, called the guys with a shop that we went up. They made the parts, drilled the holes. Then I had the guys take the fabric off, and I thought, I'm going to build a red beating heart for the thing. So I changed the lighting on it. And then we took it back out, and we were there maybe an hour before the helicopter showed up. And now we've got David Walper and probably 100 people out there to watch the second crash.
Oh, wow.
All the things you never want to do in life. Experimental thing. You're supposed to do it in the desert so nobody knows you crashed. Well, with the fabric off, there was not a problem. The helicopter took off and went really fast into the wind. Turned around, came back, set it back down, didn't have a lick of trouble with it. And then I got my $50,000.
Nice.
I had to go to the bank really fast because we had suppliers to pay. And
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
So did you know that there are still conspiracy theorists out there to this day that believe that was done by the government to help the American people get ready for a real alien invasion? Did you ever hear that story?
Oh, this tickles me pink because how many years has it been since 1984? Right. People are still raging on the internet about what it was because, there's still videos of it that was, on television at night. But here's the source of that. First off, we're in the Coliseum in L.A., and there's right around 90,000 people there, and a lot of them have been drinking beer all afternoon. So people are pretty loopy. We had almost a full moon that night, and the broadcasters were in a booth on the south side of the field, and the saucer was going to come out of the southeast behind them where they can't see it coming. But the people on the north side of the field would be able to see it showing up. And with a little bit of music, drama, and lighting and stuff, all of a sudden this thing appeared, and you couldn't tell what it was. I mean, everybody's familiar with something, and they say, "Oh my God, what is that?" It looks like, "Oh my God, what is that?" And you could hear this voices going around that stadium. 90,000 people going, Oh, sure, what is that? And of course, broadcast, and I have 90 million people around the world. It's being broadcast, and the broadcasters can't see what it is. They only hear the people screaming. And then the cameras had it with one of these starfield things. So against the moon, the thing looked absolutely shocking. What on earth? And they could hear a helicopter. Well, what we did, we had a helicopter painted black. It was 100 feet up the cable I bought. And on either side was two helicopters that looked like police helicopters with flashing lights, and you could hear those. But guess what? When you do that to people, they see and hear a helicopter. There's 3 helicopters. They see 2. It never dawns on them there's another helicopter.
Right.
So they believe what they're seeing. And the idea was that the Martians were going to show up someday, and there was a party on the field. And if you remember the movie Encounters of the Third Kind, where the big spacecraft showed up and it started talking to people on the ground with sounds and lights. You remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay, that's what Walper wanted. So we got these blue lights and we got dancers on the field, and a saucer shows up and it's got a big 10K xenon light that's hunting. It's looking to see what's going on. And then we rigged it up that they had an audio system that it went beep, boop, 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 to the ground. The ground would go beep, 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 boop. And then we had a program up in the helicopter with a guy with a box controlling it. And then we would send light signals down. They'd send them back up from the ground. So pretty soon, you got all these people going, oh my God, it is the Martians. They have come.
And then it opens, right?
And today people still believe that whole thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. When I did a little, I watched the video on YouTube, and I had to say it is a convincing effect. And then when it doesn't, correct me if I'm wrong, it lands and then a Martian or an alien gets out of the thing, right?
Oh yeah, they had rigged up this guy about 8 or 9 feet tall. When the thing, it came to the Coliseum and then it turned and went back down. And when it landed, they had all these flares that went up, so you saw it go down, and this tremendous orange glow coming out of the trees. And then almost at that same moment, this tall silvery figure appeared, and everybody knew they were here.
So
it was a fun night. It was a good one.
What would you say to people who would tell you right now that you're still just covering up the government secret?
Well, I love the stories. The more time goes by and the more people, America is full of people that believe in conspiracies. People will believe anything. We have people that sell snake oil for hundreds of years in this country. We have people that will buy anything. It's in the nature of Americans to not take stuff as strict fact. They say, no, it's got to be something behind it. It's got to be a conspiracy. I just know it's got to be a conspiracy. And then, of course, you add in, 20 years of drugs and the internet and everything. You can't stamp this stuff out. It'll go on forever.
It's true.
It doesn't matter how many times I explain it. I won't believe it.
That's great. See, this is exactly why you have to listen to this podcast. I had no idea that Bob Gurr was behind the UFO in the Los Angeles Olympics. So I guess you learn something new all the time. Go on YouTube, just Google Los Angeles Olympics UFO and watch it and listen to the reactions of the announcers on TV. It's really priceless. And I did a little searching and people still believe, I wasn't kidding, Bob, people still think that it was a conspiracy and the United States government covered it up, even though here we have the guy who created the darn thing telling you exactly how he did it. What a cool story. I told you in the intro that was a good one. All right, here we go on to episode number 124, and it's all about the things you didn't know about Magic Kingdom. And here's where I need that catchphrase. Like I always want to say, like, Yo, Vanilla, kick it one more time for us, boy. But I'm not as cool as Vanilla Ice was in the early 90s. I'm not even as cool as Vanilla Ice is now. And I don't think he's that cool. Didn't he get arrested for, like, going into a garage and stealing a whole bunch of people's stuff, like bikes and stuff? I don't know. Anyway, enough of the Vanilla Ice stuff. Here we go with episode number 124.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
If you are a regular listener to this show, and you probably are, because if you weren't, and I just did that Vanilla Ice thing, you probably would have turned it off by now. But if you're a regular listener to this show, you know that we talk a lot about like the secrets and the history and the background of the parks. And we do a lot of Magic Kingdom and Disneyland stuff. But that's why this week I wanted to go into a bit of the things that you might not know about Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom. Now, I have no idea what way my guest took this list or this topic, so I guess we'll see in a moment. But I'm hoping that the stuff that we bring you this week is little things, little factoids, little nuggets, if you will, of information and things that you really haven't heard or don't know about Walt Disney World's most popular theme park. My guest tonight isn't a meteorologist, but he frequents Disney so much he can give you a forecast for a day inside the park anytime. In addition to the temperature and humidity, he also provides a body odor index, letting you know what time of day you can expect the highest levels of aroma inside the park. Please welcome back my friend and brother from another mother, and a guy I haven't had on the show in a while, the one, the only, Johnny Shortsleeve. What's up, man? How are you?
Oh, guilty as charged, man. I'm doing all right. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
I don't know where you got that little nugget from, but that's 100% true. And I
got to hear about this. I got to hear about the body odor index.
Let me tell you how it works. It's a pretty simple algorithm that I've devised here. So, let's say, for example, think about like you're riding the monorail in the Magic Kingdom and 9 a.m. and you're surrounded by some folks that maybe got the funk level up a little bit.
Okay.
You know it's going to be a long day because you're going to be around people already. It's like they're already stinking. It's a hot day. It's a humid day. It gets going early sometimes in the summertime. That's when you got to be prepared to dip on out there and hit the pool or don't plan on spending the whole day because you might have some fumigation issues to contend with. So it's a very olfactory kind of response that I've devised. And science has proven it. I mean, I've worked with NASA on this. It's definitely it's patent pending at this point, of course. So I can protect the rights to the technology. But no, it's true. And I don't know if you've experienced it too, but if you go there in the winter time, we get like a good 2, maybe 3 weeks of chilly weather here in Florida.
That's true.
And you can be there all day. Everything's cool. You don't break a sweat. But then, for the rest of the year, when it gets a little toasty, oh man, summertime, 9 a.m., you just know, oh boy, it's going to be a long day.
I know that feeling. I know when you walk, I know from going in the summer, and I'm going to be there. Crazily enough, my family and I are coming down in July, which is, start talking about rookie mistakes, right? That's one right there. But we want to
I don't think it's a rookie mistake, though.
Well, the kids, no, the reason we're doing it is the kids are going to be in school. Our youngest both are going to be in kindergarten this year, and it's hard to take them out of school. So we figure we're going to get our trip in. It's for my wife, Amy, who's become kind of a regular on the show, actually, is so quote unquote surprising me with a trip, but I already know about it. And we're coming down ahead of my birthday in July for my 40th. And but what I was going to say is, I know that. Let me ask you this, and you're a local, and you know this. When it's a day that it's going to be like 95 degrees, when you walk outside, even at like 7 a.m., and as soon as you walk out and you feel the air, you're like, oh no. And it's still like in the 70s, but just from that feeling when you first walk out the door, that it's going to be, as the dog himself, Randy Jackson, would say, it's going to be a hot one tonight. You know it.
Yeah, no, it's true. But I think this is the difference. And maybe this is, it's a good point to bring up to folks who aren't Floridians. You kind of become conditioned to it and you become smart about it. So like, for example, I mean, just some basics, like you're not going to roll out there wearing like your black Levi's, skin tight 501 jeans and a black t-shirt. And you're wearing lighter colors, you're looser fitting stuff. You're staying hydrated. There's a thing, SOS, seek out shade. So you're like always standing out in the shady spots. But the other thing is too, like a lot of the people like me, we don't do all day in the parks in July. We'll go like first thing in the morning, cruise around a bit, hit a few rides, and then cruise out and get, some pool time or just hang out in the shade or get, indoors for a while and then go back later after like the afternoon rain shower that comes like at 3:00 every day.
Yep.
And then like in the evenings, like I can't tell you, man, like this is, I get so mad at people sometimes when they say, oh my gosh, it's the worst in the summertime, because it's actually really awesome. Like if you go, like perfect example, walking around like World Showcase in the evening, like as the sun's setting, it's beautiful out, especially after, if the humidity gets cut from the rain, it's not that bad out there. It's nice. It's nice. It's a nice little walk. Just don't plan to do all day and wear yourself out. I mean, yeah, you're going to be miserable doing that. But pool's your best friend. Water's your best friend. Red Solo cup full of Everclear's your best friend. I mean, you just got to be smart about it.
No, I agree, Mike. We do that with the kids. We take the break in the middle of the day, say after lunch, go back to the resort. We do a little break in AC for a while, then do an air conditioner. Then we hit the pool for a little bit, and then you come back in the evening. I mean, listen, we're lucky enough that we've come down enough with the kids already that we have that, advantage that we don't have to go. We've done a lot, but there are people who book that trip in the summer and try to do successfully that, 8 to 10 to 12 to 14 hour day. And man, that's a lot. In that heat, you can get wiped the heck out doing that.
And can I tell you my secret move on staying cool? This is going to sound dumb, but it's actually, I mean, I've tested it out. It works for me. Me and NASA, we double checked it. It's good. Drinking water with lime, like a wedge of lime, not lemon. Lemon will like fire you up. Lime will mellow you out. Like it helps me stay cool. So a little bit of lime with that water. Every time you get in a glass of water at a restaurant, ask for a lime wedge.
Dude,
rock it out.
So you just reminded me, and I haven't done this in the longest time on the show, but you just reminded me of a Mitch Hedberg quote, because there's a live recording of him, and I don't know where he is, and he's got a glass of something in front of him. Who knows? It was Mitch, so who knows what he was drinking during the show. And he started talking about the lime in the drink, and he's like, look, he said the lime always floats. He goes, next time I'm in a boat and it capsizes, I'm going to get somebody to throw me a lime. I was saved by the buoyancy of citrus. It's a good time, man. It's really silly, but it's funny.
It's true.
Anyway, it's man. True. Mitch Hedberg and the Florida sun and heat aside, we should get to the topic at hand, and that's the things you may not know about Magic Kingdom. Since I am a complete Disney nerd, I had a huge list for this. Like, I had to cut it down. I had maybe 20 things that I wanted to mention that I cut down to, let me see, 1, 2, 3. I cut it down to 6. But I have 6, so maybe I'll do the 5 in an honorable mention. Excuse me. I don't know what you're looking at, how many you have on your list. But I would think it'd be awesome. You go first if you can. And, let's get it started. Things you didn't know. Because there's a lot of stuff, even crazy Disney nerds like us might not know about the theme parks and, in particular, the Magic Kingdom. In particular, I think. That's right.
Yeah, hold on. Let me look up on Urban Dictionary. Yeah, my list is probably a little different than yours because you're hard body karate when it comes into like getting into the nuts and bolts of the history, which I think is what's fascinating to me about listening to your episodes, like especially like word of the week and kind of stuff. So I think my list is probably gonna be stuff that maybe you've heard before, maybe it's been in the periphery somewhere, but it's not really like up front and center. Maybe and you know what? I'm looking at my 3x3 post-it note right now. It's a Frankenstein list. It's all over the board of just weird little nuggets I thought would be interesting to throw out there.
That's cool. I'm into that.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. You might have to scrap this episode.
No, man,
this might be the first.
This is going up. I'm ready to put this up online right now. There's no scrapping. No editing,
gosh.
no scrapping. I'm behind on my shows, so this is going live like as soon as we're done recording.
Man, no safety net, man.
No,
you got to make it.
You're like one of the Melendez. You don't have a safety net. Just go.
Oh, great. All right, let me do this one. I think this is not going to be something that is going to be a shock to some people, but I think it's something that I have not heard very many people talk about. Maybe only a very small handful of people I've heard talk about this. This is something really interesting. It's at Magic Kingdom, a couple days a week, they have this thing called early morning magic. And it's something that they do in Fantasyland. Don't quote me on the prices because if someone's listening to this 30 years from now in the future, the price is going to be all out of whack. But so what you do is on the days that they do it, it's a hard ticket event, but they don't really sell it. You don't hear advertisements about it, and the blogs don't go over it too much. But basically what you do is you get early access to Magic Kingdom, and they take you over to, you get to go into Fantasyland. And I'm trying to remember what the rides. I know it's definitely Mine Train, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. I know it's Peter Pan's Flight. And I also want to think it's like Winnie the Pooh also. Like I think it's those three right now that they open those three attractions for this small group of people who bought the ticket, and they can ride those rides as much as they want during that period of time. So you might think, all right, cool, whatever. You just get unlimited access to these three rides for like a 3-hour window or 2-hour window, whatever it is. I can't remember exactly, but the other thing too is it includes breakfast. So like once you're done hanging out, you can go over to Pinocchio's and or Pinocchio Village House, however you pronounce that. And they have like a little breakfast spread set up for you. So it's kind of like saying, the last time I looked at the prices, it was like on par for what the Crystal Palace was pretty close to what the Crystal Palace breakfast was. And so you kind of think like, all right, you're not getting to meet Winnie the Pooh and Tigger and Eeyore and Piglet and have that whole scene over there. But you get to ride the rides, you get to have a breakfast and go crazy and eat as much as you want. And I think it's a neat way to kind of get a jump start on the day. And then you're right there already ahead of a lot of the crowds. So, everyone loves, I don't know, I'm not saying like a big secret, but I think a lot of people like to just beeline it to Fantasyland first thing in the morning and just plow through a bunch of those rides if they don't have fast passes for them. And then they save their fast passes for later in the day. It's a strategy that works. I've done it a bunch of times. You can get a lot of cool rides in when you do it that way. But I think that's a neat thing to think about if you're someone who says, you know what, I want to try something differently. I want to have the experience of walking down Main Street with it not be like, a mad dash where you're getting trampled over. Kind of like those scenes when you see like they do like those wedding dress sales. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, or Black Fridays.
Yeah, that's what I should have said. Black Friday. I'm not talking about wedding dress sales.
I don't buy a lot of wedding dresses.
Scrap this episode already. Like I just lost a whole bunch of man points about people getting trampled in a wedding dress sale. I mean, you know what I meant to say? I meant to say at Home Depot when the Makita drills go on sale. You know what I mean?
I don't even know what that is.
It's right.
I don't own it. I don't own a drill. I don't. If something that needs, if there's something that breaks in my house that requires any kind of drilling, I'm out. I hire someone to do that. I can't do that.
Oh man, it sounds like something. That'd be a good little, good toy for Jack for Christmas. Get him.
He had a toy drill. And when he was a toddler, when he was 2, 3, he had a toy drill, And he had no interest in it, probably because I didn't have a real one.
Oh.
I just got a toolbox like 6 months ago. I'm not even kidding.
No, congratulations.
I don't use my hands. You know what? I like taking apart electronics. So I always had like little, like a big thing of screwdrivers. And I would always my whole life I loved, unhooking electronics and taking them apart and seeing how they worked. But I've never been into.
Did you put them back together? Or was that
yeah. No. I did.
You were a prankster. You just go to your friends' houses. Ha ha! I disabled your VCR.
No, I famously took apart my family still talks about it. I had a Nintendo when I was like 10. I think I got it when I was like 7. And when I was like 10, it didn't work anymore. So I took it apart. I took everything apart. I took pictures of it, and then I waited till I got the pictures developed, so I knew where everything went. And I cleaned it all up, put it back together, and it worked perfectly. So, yeah.
Imagine like the person who was developing those photos, like all they see like this circuitry. Like, do we call the FBI? Is this guy like planning some kind of?
I used to do wacky stuff like that all the time. But dude, I really like the pick because I think it's a really good one for people who have kids that aren't toddlers, who were in that, in between age of they can ride Seven Dwarfs Mine Train now, but they can't do Space Mountain and other stuff like that. The bigger thrill rides, they can go and you can get them on that. Like, who knows how many times you could ride in that little bit of time. And to me, I like the Crystal Palace breakfast. My kids are kind of over the Pooh thing. They're not super into Winnie the Pooh. They're more into princesses and princes, and Jack's into, the Cars characters, which are pretty seriously underrepresented in Walt Disney World as it is. But yeah, man, I like that pick. I think it's a cool one, and I agree. I don't think a lot of people. I personally we don't sell that as travel agents. I don't sell that ticket, so I've never really done it.
Speaking of Crystal Palace and the breakfast, do you know about the puffed French toast?
I've heard of it. I think I've definitely been there. I don't remember eating it though.
Oh man, that's I figured out how to make it, and I made it better. Like, I'm telling you, dude. We'll talk about this after we were done recording. I can make some killer fried French toast, man.
What do you cook that in? Is that a stovetop like a
over an open flame?
You get a blowtorch out.
Got a Bunsen burner.
Yeah, you're much more of a man than I am. Like I don't get my hands dirty. I cook on the grill. I cook in the oven. That's kind of it. You have
cooking on the grill, you're getting your hands dirty.
What's that?
You cooking on the grill, you're getting your hands dirty.
Yes, but I didn't mention that my grill is. I don't know. I was going to try to make a joke out of that. Didn't work. Fell flat.
Your grill's an easy bake oven.
I was trying to think of something funny to say. Like I was going to say a hot plate. I don't know. I couldn't think of anything good.
A hot plate.
Remember that college hot plate?
College dorm room.
Yeah. I remember we had one. My buddy Pat and I, who was my roommate in college, we had one, and you couldn't do anything with that thing. You couldn't cook anything on that.
Well, like the hot plates are a thing now again, because you seen those tasty videos.
Yeah,
like
the
on
YouTube stuff. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that anybody ever watches like a 2-minute tasty video on YouTube and goes, "I can make that," and then go do it, right? Because it's in like super fast motion.
Yeah.
But they were working on hot plates, like induction top, like version of a hot plate, which is like heavy duty, but it's crazy.
Yeah,
they're back in fashion.
Eventually we hit a microwave in our closet in our dorm room because we couldn't do the hot plate anymore.
I used to work with a dude who hid a toaster oven in his desk at work, and like if he just had the mood for cookies, he'd have a thing of like break and bake cookies in the fridge, and he'd go grab that and fire up his toaster oven in his desk and make cookies.
That's not breaking any kind of fire codes or any kind of hazards or anything like that. No problem.
Oh, we all looked the other way because like he'd share with us. We're like, yeah,
we made the office smell great.
Yeah, oh God, how's that for morale?
It smells like the confectionery in there in your office.
My gosh.
We got to move on. All right, so my first thing, and again, I think mine are much more historical. I had a feeling you were going to go more present day than I did, so I think we'll have a cool kind of balance here. My first one is All right. So the car barn, right, in Magic Kingdom?
Yeah.
So when you walk in and you're in Town Square, to your left, after you pass the fire station, before you get to the barbershop, is the car barn. And it's two huge like barn doors that are closed a lot, but sometimes they're open. And you can look in there, and they keep the there's the horses that they're using for the day that are there that when they're not at the ranch, and they have the trolley that they keep in there. And so there's this one cool detail in the car barn that if you don't know where to look and you don't know exactly what you're looking at, you'll miss it. So look towards the back of the car barn, and there's this exposed wire hanging off the ceiling, like this old school, like that looks like it shouldn't be there, kind of exposed wire. And hanging from that wire is this old-fashioned looking light bulb, right? And I'm sure, have you heard this story before?
I'm really trying to think about this as you're saying. I don't know that I know this.
This is really a neat thing. So it looks like it doesn't fit, right? So, of course, the Magic Kingdom, Main Street USA, is the turn of the 20th century, right? It's the gas light meets the electric light. It's the horse-drawn carriage meets the motor carriage, all that stuff. So in the back of the car barn is this exposed wire that's holding this light bulb. And it's a really old-school looking light bulb. So here's what's cool about that light bulb. All the other light bulbs in the car barn are, light bulbs that are replaced by cast members, whenever. This one exposed one in the back, is an actual Edison light bulb that is made using pieces and parts that were only available to Thomas Edison in his day when he designed the first ever light bulb. It's built just like that. There's a guy down south, I forget exactly where he's from, that specializes in reconstructing these Edison light bulbs, and Disney pays him to make light bulbs for this one light fixture in the car barn to kind of represent the turn of the century. How darn cool is that? I just think that's the coolest thing, that they have that kind of level of detail in a place that you don't really ever see. Like, no one walks in there. The rope is up. You can't even go in, but you can look in and you can see that light bulb in the back of the barn. So to me, I just love that, that the detail and the attention to detail, and it's a really, really cool thing if you're looking for it.
I'm right there with you. I'm really fascinated by stuff like that. I've never heard that story before, but I got to imagine that if you're the Imagineer who decided that this was going to be a detail that was going to be required in order to really tell the story, to give the guest that feeling and being immersed in that, the Main Street USA, in that environment. And then you go to open the park each day, and then you go to see if there's any guests. You could go tell the story. Hey, check out this light bulb, and all of a sudden they're running past to go to Peter Pan, and which stinks, because that to me is what makes it so fascinating. Is it could be just like any other amusement park where there's just roller coasters and twirls and wow and whatever other you have in amusement parks. But no, that's why we love Walt Disney so much. They do go through a level of detail in the story, even if it's a detail that you don't ever really understand, fully appreciate just by walking past it. But to me, like, it's cool to know that so many of those little nuggets out there that are yet to be uncovered. At least for me, that's really cool.
Yeah, man, I really like that. It's one of those ones that you're not going to see, you're not going to really notice unless there's somebody like me telling you about it, and you're going to look for it. But yeah, it's a really cool one. So moving on from the car barn light bulb, I know I'm going to take us back in time every single time, but I think it'll be cool. So you're up, man, for your next one.
So this is definitely different, but I think this is an interesting little thing that, it may not apply to most people who are going to be visiting Walt Disney World, but I think there are going to be there's going to be many guests or parties who are going to be interested in knowing this little factoid. So all the theme parks have the ability for ASL interpreters to come into the theme parks and help guests who are hard of hearing or hearing impaired to be able to enjoy the attractions. And Magic Kingdom is just like the others. They have 2 days that they have interpreters. And again, I'm holding off on trying to say like the exact days because it might change. But like right now, it's Mondays and Thursdays that I know of. And as I've heard, it's 5 different spots on those 2 days at Magic Kingdom. So if you are, and the best way I know to kind of get the exact schedule is guest relations. They usually have the schedules available. So I can like the City Hall in Town Square is like the guest relations hub. But so I think it's Jungle Cruise. It's the stage show at the castle, which is like, is that like Mickey's Royal Friendship Fair, right. Something like that.
Hey, right
is that it?
Yep. That's it.
Holy smokes, that's it. I was just guessing that.
No, that's it.
Oh man, I should go play the lottery. There's, I think, like Festival of Fantasy, the parade. They do it at Liberty Square. Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor, and then I think it's the Move It, Shake It. What is the rest of it? It's Move It, Shake It. I'll do my homework one of these days.
Celebrated dance party and
play. Put the fire extinguisher out on the dragon. So, and the way that works is the interpreters will come out to those attractions or the shows and will interpret for any guests that are hearing impaired. And I think it's kind of neat to watch because, I don't know ASL, but I think it's neat to see that they have the ability to not only just translate to what is being said on those shows, but they put the emotion in it too, where it's a real, like a performance that they're doing. And I think that's so amazing that they found ASL interpreters, or they trained them in a way that allows them to really be a part of the show and allows those guests who need those services to really try to get the best that they can out of that experience, which is, it's nice that they, again, kind of like dovetailing off of your discussion earlier about the light bulb in just terms of detail. Like they could have just said, all right, you know what, we're going to go above and beyond. We'll have some ASL interpreters a couple of days a week, check that box, move on to the next thing. But no, they really did say these interpreters do need to be a part of the show. And it's really cool if you do get a chance to watch them do the interpretation of any of those shows. And again, I so hope that whoever, if everybody's listening to this and somebody who would benefit from that, they don't hear it and then all of a sudden like they don't do it at Jungle Cruise anymore. I apologize. That's just what I know of when I've talked to some of my friends who know about it. That's what they told me, and that's what I've seen in terms of just happen to be there at those times when they're doing that. So that's a nice little thing that they do that may not be known, but I think Walt Disney World is famous for accessibility and helping to enhance the experience for guests who might have some different needs in terms of their ability to enjoy themselves in the parks. And that's just one that I think is a really neat one to kind of stumble upon if you do get a chance to see it.
That's a good pick, man. I've seen them doing it in some of the stage shows, right? Like I've seen them at the Frozen sing-along show. Mm-hmm. And you're right. The amount of kind of effort they put in to kind of give you the feel and the emotion and all of what the people are saying on stage it's phenomenal. They do just an amazing, amazing job. And again, it's a really cool pick, one that I wasn't thinking of, and it made me think of something else, which is completely, tangent alert. But there are people on YouTube who will do the whole the ASL, right? Interpretation for songs, for like hip hop songs. Have you seen these folks that do this? Have you ever seen a video for this?
They do an ASL interpretation of hip hop.
So there's a girl, and whose name escapes me. She got her video went viral. She's like college age, I think. 20s. Late teens, early 20s. From what I remember, totally deaf. I think totally deaf. and does Eminem's "Lose Yourself," and completely nails it with like the attitude and like the facial expressions, the way she like it's amazing. You just gotta look it up. Go to tonight, like pause. I don't want you to pause if you're in the car driving. I know you're not, man, but I hope you're not. I don't know if you are, but if you're listening to this and you're in the car,
I'm riding in a rickshaw right now, actually.
But yeah, like pause and go watch it. Google or go on YouTube and type in Eminem "Lose Yourself" ASL interpretation. It's incredible, and this girl does an amazing job of I've listened to it a lot. I've watched it a bunch of times with the sound on so I can hear Eminem's words. And I obviously don't know sign language, but I've turned it off, the sound off, and watched her do it. And I still know where it is in the song based on her, the way she's doing it. It's an amazing thing. It's really cool. So yeah, I think that, I mean, it's a complete tangent, and it's something that's way different than this. I mean, Eminem and Disney don't fit into the same exact, sentence, but it's a really cool thing to watch. I'm telling you, go check it out.
Well, I mean, hopefully, I think like modern day hip hop is just is no bueno. Like I like the classics, like like the pioneers, like the Fat Boys, Biz Markie.
So I'm not going to catch with like, I don't even know, dude. I wish I could tell you a new.
Yeah, I'm not down with like Wiz Khalifa and
I don't know those guys. I know
the Migos.
I know Eminem. I have a lot of Eminem on my iPod for like running and stuff. I know that a lot of that stuff.
Oh yeah, man. I'm down. I'm more like Boogie Down Productions kind of guy.
All right. So we got to move on. So my next one, that is again, it's a really good pick. But my next one, again, it's historic. I guess it's a little less historic than the last one. But okay, so when you're driving into and this is Magic Kingdom, but it's not inside kind of the park proper, I guess. But when you're driving into Magic Kingdom and you come to the parking booths, you know what I mean, with the Magic Kingdom sign over it. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So the sign, the big kind of sign that's over that says Magic Kingdom, that's held up by it's by two like big poles on the other side. That was, believe it or not always there. That used to be the sign for the Wonders of Life Pavilion at Epcot. And when the Wonders of Life Pavilion went away and they kind of just, let the trees grow and hid the path over there, they took that sign down and they took the words Wonders of Life off and they put the words Magic Kingdom on it and they moved it to those, the parking booths. I think that was in... Shoot, I forget what year that was. I did not write that down. I wish I did. I'm looking at my list. Let me go back. See what year that was. Talk amongst yourselves.
So if they repurposed that sign, what did they do with the hand that was next to Spaceship Earth? Where's that hanging out?
It's in John Stamos' backyard.
John Stamos, the consummate collector of Disneyana.
No, so I don't know what year it was, but whatever year Wonders of Life closed, that sign stayed there for a little while, and then they moved it, and now it is actually over the parking booths at Magic Kingdom. So you can actually recognize it if you look at them kind of side by side. You can see the similarity in the sign. So I thought that was a cool one to kind of bring up. And the funny thing about John Stamos is he did bid on another famous Disney sign. It was the Disneyland road sign that was on, I don't know what freeway that was out there. I'm not very familiar with the roads out in Anaheim, but that Disneyland has for years and years had the roadside, the big famous roadside sign. Well, I think it was the second iteration of the Disneyland roadside sign. It went on eBay, like, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago. And, someone bid and won, and it turned out it was John Stamos. And he had no idea how big the darn sign was. I guess, I don't know if he didn't read the fine print, but it's enormous. Like, it's huge. So he has this big, huge house in Hollywood, and he had them remove the D from Disneyland, and that's in his backyard, the D. But the rest of it he has in storage somewhere. But if you look, if you Google that, you'll find John Stamos' house, and he has his little guest house with this huge D that's like 2 stories tall next to his house. It's a pretty cool picture.
That's insane. I mean, I guess good for him that he's that big of a fan and a collector. But man, that's like some poor planning.
He didn't really think it through.
I mean, if you have like a ranch in Montana, whatever, there you go.
Yeah, put the sign up, turn the lights on. Yeah,
when you got that little that cliff on Mulholland Drive, you don't got a lot of real estate to work with.
But the D is there. You can find it on Google Earth. It's pretty amazing. So,
it's on Google Earth.
Oh yeah, you can find exactly where he lives on Google Earth because of the D.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny.
So I guess he's not. I'm sure he's got a gate and a guard and stuff. I mean, he's John Stamos.
Think he lights it up at night?
I would. Oh my God, I would definitely do that. I would have bought a bigger place just to put the whole sign up. Really.
Talk about a full house. See what I did there?
Ah, well done. Look at that. Right.
That's a pro move.
My kids, by the way, have been obsessed. Oh my God. Amy turned them on the Full House and they haven't stopped. They've watched every episode in the last, 8 or 9 months. Every episode of Full House and every episode of Fuller House. And now they're on to watching Full House again. So, yeah.
That's cool, man. Like turn them on to the stuff you guys liked as kids. Yeah. I tried that with my kids. Like I tried them on with What's Happening and Good Times. Not into it.
What's Happening in Good Times? I never watched Good Times, but I was when I stayed home from school, I was a big What's Happening guy. I used to always watch What's Happening. Hey, hey, hey. All right, man. We got to go. You're up. Next one.
Okay. Now, this is a good planning idea. So, we talked about you coming up here in July, have your vacation coming up. So, fireworks are huge in Magic Kingdom for 4th of July and also for New Year's Eve. I mean, those are really times when they just go crazy and do just insane displays of fireworks. But here's the problem. Magic Kingdom on New Year's Eve, Magic Kingdom on 4th of July is just insanity. But what most guests don't know is that they also do the exact same display the day before. So like July 3rd and then December 30th. Now, again, gosh, I hope last 5 years were the only years they've done it and not they're going to do it anymore. But I don't know if it's like a test run that they do it or why they do it a day before also. But if you're really interested and you're in town and you want to see those like mega fireworks displays on 4th of July or New Year's Eve, but you don't really want to go crazy with the crowds on the holiday itself, the day before has the exact same display, and which is a lot easier to get in and out of the park. It's still crowded, but not as insane as it is on the actual day itself. So that's an interesting idea to keep in mind. And people talk about watching it from the beach at the Polynesian, but you have to be careful with that because now they've been cracking down on that with like security kind of been watching like the guests, make sure they're like actual resort guests, so it's not just overcrowded. Like they don't want the local yokels just hanging out there on those really crazy days.
Yeah, I mean you're not allowed over there.
Oh, negatory, man. I am nowhere near that scene over there. I've done it before and I just would rather kind of watch it from afar. But yeah, I've done the day before though. And like I've done July 3rd a bunch of times. And that's it's still crowded, but you get the full effect without having like the massive humanity. And, that BO index is just like the meter's off the charts. I mean,
it's the monorail in mid-August kind of effect there.
Yeah, and the problem is too, and this is what I've been working on is that you can't like accurately measure. Like, there's no like unit of measurement for BO, like a length or like horsepower.
See a length.
Like you can't take a ruler out and say, all right, the BO thickness is 12 mega units or whatever you want to assign to it. Kelvin. It's not horsepower. It's dung power. It's can't catch Kelvin. Can't catch it. But so that's a little tip for insiders. If you're in town, you want to see those displays, but you don't want to fight the mega crowds day before. That's the way to do it.
And I'll we're coming down the week after the 4th of July festivities. Kind of try to avoid those crowds, but they're there. I mean, you deal with those all summer. It's going to be that busy. I've never done the fireworks from the parks on a holiday ever. I've been there for Thanksgiving, we skipped it. I've been there for 4th of July, we skipped it. I think I've been afraid of the crowds. Really, so that's a really good tip because I can't see myself. Listen, I'm the biggest nerd out there, and I can't see myself fighting those crowds on the 4th.
Well, and you're in a different, time of your life. We have the youngsters, and it's kind of hard.
Yeah, that's what it is too. I think you're right. It's hard to get kids in and out when you're staying up, especially the 4th. I mean, the New Year's. It's impossible with kids.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember. You know what the best is when. And I know as a local, you probably don't really get this much anymore. But when they're testing a new fireworks show or a new effect, and you're staying at one of the Magic Kingdom resorts, and at like 2, 3, 4 in the morning, they're testing it. So you're sleeping, and all of a sudden, the fireworks going off. You look at your watch, and you're like, what's going on? Like,
I mean, I don't give away too much, but I live close enough that I hear that at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. Because especially when they're doing Happily Ever After, when they were testing that.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's.
I remember
see the fireworks from your house. I forgot.
They started going nuts with that one day, and like right before they were kind of producing the show, and I'm not exactly. It was like after midnight, and all of a sudden my house started shaking. I thought it was like like an earthquake, and I looked out, and then the skies lit up. I was like, they're testing the fireworks. It's crazy.
It's rough to live that close to the happiest place, or the most magical place on earth. Not the happiest.
I mean, when the Golden Oak people didn't tell me that when we bought the place,
right?
No,
so, I mean, they should have. While you were picking out your Mickey Mouse marble for your kitchen, they should have told you that was a possibility.
I think maybe it was like implied. It's like if you live on a golf course, it's like implied risk. Like you're going to get hit. Your house is going to get smacked with a golf ball. I think they just realized, you're living that close. You're gonna hear it.
So my you just reminded me of a funny story. My father-in-law lives in his Florida place. He's a snowbird, so he has a place in Florida and then a place up north and in the Northeast. But his Florida place is. It's situated on the worst spot. It's like 45 yards from a tee box on a golf course, and if you shank it, if you pull your tee shot, you're hitting his house. And you has a screened-in porch with the pool. And one day I was when our kids were really little, they were still asleep, and I got my coffee and I had a book, on my Kindle. And I'm sitting out there by the pool. I'm reading the book, and all of a sudden I don't hear it, I don't see it, nothing. I didn't hear the shot, off the club, but the darn thing hits the metal part of the screened-in porch, and it's like, and it hits it. I thought the missiles were coming, man. I jumped up and ran out of my seat. I didn't know what was going on. Here, this guy's like, oh. A couple minutes later, he comes up to the window. So, did I scare you? I'm like, well, you hit the house, man. Like you really hit a
Did I scare you? Like that's like something you'd say like when you come around a corner too quickly. Oh, did I scare you? Like no, yeah, you flung a golf ball at me like at full tilt,
plus miles an hour into the house.
I was sitting there. I had my book and my cup of coffee next to the pool.
The pool and the breeze coming in. It was awesome.
You start your day with a cup of coffee, a book next to the pool. I start mine with a Mountain Dew and a Mad magazine next to the sprinklers.
I don't do the cup of coffee and anymore. Like, and the book. I don't do a book now. I don't have time for that with little kids and all that. You don't really. When you have infants and we have babies that don't do anything, that's when you can read books in the morning. Not anymore. No way. All right. So I mean, now my kids. You know how it is with little kids. You never stop. It's. I get in my office, I close the door, and it's here, and I'm like, and I answer, and you expect like a big thing is going on because they know when I'm in my office, I'm working, and I open the door, and I'm like, hey, bub, what's going on? And they're like, I need a cracker. What? You need a cracker? You know where the crackers are? Anyway, all right. Moving on. It's going to take us forever to get through this list. So, all right, my next one. Again, pretty historical. I feel bad. Mine are like these really kind of quick factoids that I'm getting out of the way, and then you have these long explanations and like detailed, and you've really prepared. I thought I prepared, but you're way more prepared than I am. But anyway, so
yeah, that's why I keep coming back. It's my verboseness.
It's true. So my next one is again on Main Street, USA, not too far from the car barn, and well, pretty far from the arch there at the front of the park, is the Main Street Cinema. Now, all right, so 1971, the Main Street Cinema opened as literally like a little theater. I forgot to look this up, so forgive me, but I believe you needed a ticket. It was probably an A ticket back when they had ticket books to get in and see the films. They were all silent because it was keeping with the theme of the turn of the century Main Street USA. So they were all silent films that were playing in the Main Street Cinema. And that went on forever. And then I think it was the mid-70s, they decided they wanted Mickey Mouse. You know, the guests wanted Mickey in this cinema, right? But keeping with the theme, Disney didn't want to do it because Mickey wasn't around at the turn of the century. He didn't, come out until late 1920s. But they relented and they put Mickey Mouse cartoons up. And then by 1998, they shut down all the projectors in there and it became the store. Well, if you go into the Main Street Cinema now and you walk in and you look up at the ceiling, it's like a I'm trying to figure out how to say it. Hexagonal is the way to say it, right? That's with a hexagon is hexagonal. Is that right? Am I wrong?
Stand by. I'm looking it up on Urban Dictionary.
I think it's right. I think it's hexagonal. But it's a hexagon ceiling is basically what it is. And if you look up at the ceiling, you see that you can see where all the old projectors used to be. The boxes are still there. You can see where they all used to be in the ceiling, but they're not there anymore. There's no screens. There's no films, but it's kind of a cool throwback when you walk in and you look up at the ceiling and you can kind of walk around and see where each and every one of those screens used to be in the Main Street Cinema when it used to be a ticketed attraction. So yeah, believe it or not, that wasn't always a store. You used to need a ticket to go in there and watch the old silent films. So I thought that was a pretty cool thing.
It's really, and it's funny you're bringing this up because I was trying to, I don't even know why I had this thought the other day, but I was trying to think back to like when I was a kid, like what were some of the things that I remember that I know that are no longer there. And I started to think a lot about Main Street and just that whole area, Town Square, and how I just feel like a lot has changed, like, at least from my memories as a kid being down there. And I don't remember that specifically, but it's neat to think like how it's all evolved. But even with the evolution of all that it is now, it still kind of has the same feel like that it did as a kid. Like I remember feeling it, like it felt the same way.
Yeah, especially walking down the street, I think it still really kind of has that charm and the feel and the, like I recently found this one out and I didn't know before that the horse-drawn trolleys on Main Street, they add an extra thing onto this is a bonus one for you guys, for you. they add polyurethane onto the horseshoes of the horses to make the horses' steps louder when you're walking down Main Street. If they had regular horseshoes on, you wouldn't hear them as much. But because they put polyurethane on the horseshoes, it makes that click-clack of the horseshoes even louder as you're walking down Main Street. That adds to the ambiance of what you're hearing while you're walking down the street. I thought that was really cool.
I don't know why this reminded me of that, but there's an episode of The Simpsons when Homer was buying his first firearm, and he's buying all the accessories. He bought the scope, he bought a silencer, and he bought a loudener.
That's awesome. I thought you were going with when they had the horse on The Simpsons when they're like,
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I forget the horse's name. When Homer's like, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, we're going to the glue factory, and we're not bringing you. It was a great line.
It's funny.
Anyway, I'm sorry, man. So that was mine. You're up next for yours.
All right, cool, man. Let's file this one under the weird little nuggets of knowledge about Magic Kingdom. So this is something that I've seen for a long, long time. I never knew what it was. It just was kind of this thing hiding in plain sight. And everyone that I asked about it never knew what it was until I bumped into a friend of mine who had worked there years ago. And he just happened to be working in that area. And he knew exactly what I was talking about. So if you're riding the monorail and it doesn't matter if it's the Resort Loop or the Express line, you're going to go on the stretch of the monorail that goes between the Contemporary and Magic Kingdom. And you're going to see like a little retention pond that kind of sits right next to the train tracks and next to Space Mountain. And in that retention pond, there's this like robotic thing that just floats in the middle of the retention pond. And it looks like cool and futuristic. So I always thought it was kind of themed for Tomorrowland. And, they wanted to kind of use this high-tech stuff to maybe, I thought it was like skimming the water so the pond moss or the muck and whatever wouldn't kind of collect. I had no idea what the heck this thing was. So I was talking to my buddy, and I said, you used to work over there, right? Like, what? Do you know what I'm talking about? You know this thing? He goes, yeah, I know what that thing is. I said, well, what is it? He said, well, a lot of these waterways that we have here at Walt Disney World, he was telling me, like, they're connected. Like, they have, like most waterways here, like most, like, retention ponds and everything in Florida are. They're connected just for purposes of, rain runoff and all that kind of stuff. And but just these are natural waterways, so there's going to be situations where you're going to have wildlife that becomes part of that scenery. And they were having this issue with alligators coming into that retention pond. Well, and how they knew that they were there was that they would be sunning themselves right on the bank, which would be right next to the train tracks. So you'd be on the train. And you look over, and there's a gaggle of alligators right there, just hanging out. And which is funny because on one section of the train track, as you're going on the journey there, they have a couple of alligators that are animatronic ones, but these are real ones that were sitting over there. People kind of thought it was part of the show. Well, so what this thing is, he said he couldn't remember if it actually trapped them or just deterred them, but it does. Whatever it does keep them from coming into that waterway, or it either prohibits them or actually, humanely traps them in a way that keeps them from going any further than beyond that waterway to the guest areas. And he said, no, there's a lot that they do in terms of planning because they do want to keep the natural beauty of the area alive within Magic Kingdom and all of Walt Disney World, but still respect nature. And so they have to strike this balance between allowing the natural wildlife and, there's all kinds of stuff you'll see. It's funny. Just the other night, I was doing the night safari over at Kilimanjaro Safaris. And I thought of you because as we were walking through the queue, it was just empty. And at the time of night that we were going through there, and as we're walking up, guess what I see crossing the walkway there? Big old rat. I thought of you. It's like, man, I know they're coming out now. Yeah. And, I'm not saying that, it's rat infest, whatever. It's just, it is what it is. And I know they do amazing.
it's natural. I mean,
it's outside, and they do a lot to control the population.
Sure.
So it's not, they just don't let it go. It just, if one, that just happens. And if that does happen, they're quick to get it resolved. They don't let they don't let it get out of control. But I thought it was just kind of interesting that they could have gone to the lengths of just putting up some kind of chicken wire, or I don't know how you even do it, like to keep alligators from going into that retention pond. But they use kind of like what I think of is just kind of themed well. It's like this little, it looks like almost looks like a rover, like moon landing kind of thing. Like if you would,
yeah, like from Horizons or something.
Yeah,
like
something
like that.
It's got like a little solar panel on it, so it's like self-powered. It's really cool looking. So next time you're on the monorail, or if you're driving past it, like you're going in there on a VIP tour or something like that, you'll see it. That's right in that little retention pond. It's a cool little contraption they have there.
You know what I've heard from an Imagineer that worked over there is it's actually an alligator wood chipper, and it chips them up, and no, that's not true.
Turns them into belts.
Boots and belts and jackets, and yeah.
I was joking about Gatorland on a recent episode you and I did.
Yeah.
And if I told you, like my neighbor went over there, and I said, "What was the gift shop like over there? I've never been there. Is it just boots and wallets and hats of gator skin?"
I haven't been there. I was there. Oh, geez, 12 years ago. I have to imagine it's built up a bit since the last time I was there. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I have noticed that thing over there, and I actually didn't know what it was. So that's a cool one, man. I had now I want to know what it's doing. Is that thing full of alligators? It's floating around. Like what the heck is it? Like, do they come in nightly and open it up, and there's like 15 gators there? Like, I want to know.
Good question.
I don't know. Who knows? The gator relocation team comes in like nightly and pulls them out of there. All right, so I'm looking at my list trying to figure out where to go. All right, yeah. So I have two more, three if you. I don't think you're gonna take mine again because mine are pretty historic. But all right, so my next one.
What are you trying to say?
No. Like, just took a different tack. Is all you're doing. Your tips they're really like modern and stuff that are helping people. Mine are just like historical. Like, mine aren't really helpful. They're just,
I'm smarter than you.
No, I'm just a nerd.
I'm just giving you a hard time, man. I think it's funny.
All right. So, that was weird. I was trying to swallow. You ever do that? When you try to swallow and you can't, and it takes a second, and you're like, "Oh, I want to suffocate right now."
Did you hear the soundtrack when I was going on? Hello, darkness, my old friend.
For a second, it was so weird. Anyway, okay. So my next one: when you're riding on the People Mover in Walt Disney World, and you're in one of the dark tunnels, and on your left, if you're going forward, on your right-hand side, if you're going backward, and I forget the narration exactly. I don't know what it says, but it talks about Walt Disney's Progress City, that was the original, Epcot model, and you pass a portion, a really small portion, even though it looks really big, compared to what it was, it's a pretty tiny section of the original Progress City model, which was the original Walt Disney's original idea for Epcot. And the thing that you see on the People Mover is an actual piece of that model that was unveiled, I think, in the 63 or 64, I want to say, on the Disneyland TV show. And it's a very, very tiny piece of this enormous model that they had at the Progress Land exhibit in the New York World's Fair in 64, 65, and then I think the whole thing was brought out to Disneyland, and then apparently somewhere in one of the giant Disney warehouses that they have, the rest of that model kind of still exists. But from what I know, from what I've been told, no one knows exactly where it is. But you get to see a little piece of it when you're on the People Mover, and it's so cool to see the model of Progress Lander, the model of what Walt Disney wanted his Epcot to be, and it's the real original thing. And when you see, I know you go by it really, really quickly, but you can see like the cars and the buildings and the skyscrapers and the Ferris wheel and all these really cool details and these really cool things. And I love seeing that, and I love pointing it out to people that was the model that Walt looked at and Walt had designed for Epcot in the 60s. So, I don't know, man. I just think it's a really cool thing that you can see. And I think a lot of people don't realize that was the actual model that Walt had made for Epcot. So, yeah, that's, to me, I try to get pictures of it every time I go through. They never turn out. My pictures are always blurry, no matter what setting I use my camera. But I love going through there and seeing it. It's really cool.
And just hop off the People Mover and just jump off and just take a photo and just hop in the next car that comes in.
You want to? I'm sure that's safe. You do want to get in there. Like, I want to kind of stop and really examine the darn thing. It's an amazing piece of history that you kind of fly right by in Magic Kingdom. It really is.
Yeah, and it, even though they say it in the narration, I don't think the narration really kind of does it justice in terms of really helping you to understand how important that model is and what it meant for just the overall development of the Florida project and Walt Disney World, what it became.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that is one of the reasons why I love riding the People Mover just because of that aspect right there. Just you get such a cool vibe. I mean, at least if you're a Disney nerd, you see that and it just kind of makes you realize, man, this is just such a cool thing.
And you're so close to it. Like, you're a couple feet from it. It's this, I mean, yeah, it's I don't know. It's, if you've seen Iron Man 2, which is really weird, it's a weird, like, Tony Stark's dad, I don't know what, something Stark, I don't know what his name is. But the whole darn movie is kind of like an homage to Walt Disney and that model. Like, Tony Stark's dad in those movies has this model city that he has, and it looks just like that. And he kind of looks just like Walt Disney. It's a weird thing that they did in that movie. But the whole time I was watching that movie, I thought of that little section of the People Mover. And I wish there was something that you could do, or a tour that you could take, where you could kind of walk through the People Mover track and stop there and sit and look at it and just kind of appreciate what that is. Because I know Walt's Epcot, as he wanted, was never built, but I mean, that was like, the model was built and that was there, and it's really, really cool to kind of just, I mean, you zoom by it at what, like 5 miles an hour? But it's still fast enough to not be able to take a good picture of it. And there are pictures of it online, of the original old model, the full thing, and you can see the scope and the scale of it. It's enormous. It's like the size of a room, bigger than the size of a room, like a regular home. It's huge. But it's just a really, really cool kind of piece of history that's in an attraction. And I don't know if there's anything like that anywhere else in any Disney park or any other Disney attraction where there's a piece of Disney history. Like, I mean, I know, like, the attractions are history themselves, but this is, I mean, that thing predates Walt Disney World by 5 years. I mean, it's a really cool thing. So, yeah, I just really love that.
Yeah, man, that's a good pick. And I think it's good to kind of throw that out as a refresher, because I'm sure people have seen it, but maybe not really appreciated it. And so maybe if you were hearing the two of us kind of Disney nerds gushing over it for a second, next time you get a chance to go through there, hopefully will help you to kind of soak it in a little more and really appreciate it for what it is.
I don't think that before I really got it, I know I've seen that model since I was, I don't know, a kid, 13, 14 years old. I don't think I appreciated really what it was until I kind of, I don't know, I stumbled on some kind of book or a blog or something, and I read about it, and I was just blown away that it was there and you could see it. And yeah, it's really cool. It's just a neat thing that Disney saves so many of those things, like the scale models. Like when you walk through One Man Stream and you would see, scale models from Disneyland from 53, 54 that are still intact. Like they've done a great job of saving that stuff. So it's really cool to see that. Anyway, man, I'm sorry I'm rambling. You're up for your. It's not your last one, right? Or is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
This
wow.
is my fifth one. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Time flies.
I hesitated to bring this one out because I think we've talked about it at least 3 or 4 times, but I think it's worth mentioning it again. It's Cosmic Rays Starlight Cafe. I don't know if we mentioned this piece of it because I heard that it was the busiest restaurant at Walt Disney World by dollar volume, but the thing that we have mentioned, but I think it's worth mentioning again because it's interesting, is the secret menu there. There's, it's changed a lot. Like the one that I know that they're doing now is like if you ask for the 4, is they give you the quad burger, 4 patties. That's a little bit much for my taking. They do have the one by land, 2 by sea. It's the steak and 2 lobster tails. That's a little more my speed. I can go for that. I'm totally messing with you, of course. That's not even a real thing. But the thing I do want to bring out there is is a real thing. This is a real is in Fantasyland. I guess we're still calling it New Fantasyland, right? The newish section.
What's funny is the map has changed. Now it's straight up Fantasyland.
Okay, well, the old New Fantasyland.
now you're confusing me.
Now we're just messing it all up. So where right in like kind of the center where Bonjour Village Gifts is the name. I'm trying to pull the name of it. Is the name of the store. Bonjour Village Gifts. So where you have Gaston's fountain. There's on one side of the fountain is the tavern, and the other side is the gift shop. In the gift shop, if you've gone in there in Bonjour Village Gifts, if you go all the way inside of the shop, there's a portrait hanging on the wall of a gentleman with a very toothsome grin. And the person in the portrait is apparently somebody who was of the time frame, and he's dressed accordingly, and he's writing with like a quill pen. It looks very regal, and it's actually a portrait that was made of the head of Magic Kingdom at the time when New Fantasyland was being developed, Phil Holmes, and now he's the head of Disney's Hollywood Studios. But the Imagineers, I guess, decided to pay homage to him and to write him into the storyline there of the gift shop, which is interesting to me because, and this is an interesting question for you: is there anything like that for Walt anywhere at Walt Disney World, where his face, like his image, is kind of like put into the background or made as a part of the actual, obviously like One Man's Dream, like the signage, but like that was like a key aspect of that particular attraction or that area. He doesn't really appear. Like there's Partners, the statue,
and then there's the statue over at Hollywood Studios where he's the young Walt, the director Walt with the filmmaker hat on and all that to the left as you walk down Hollywood Boulevard. I don't know if there's anything else
at Hollywood Boulevard. There's that, or
yeah, right.
Like in that little courtyard area, off to the side,
the left-hand side. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
That statue was actually of a younger Walt Disney. I can't think of anywhere else where his face,
like a portrait of him. Like I don't know if there's.
I mean, there's photos of him in the Carolwood Pacific Room at Wilderness Lodge.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm not saying like this was like a bad thing to put Phil Holmes' face.
And they could spin that later as anything they want, really. I mean,
it's
like Tony Baxter in Big Thunder Mountain.
Okay. All right.
He's what is the name of the Barnabas Bouillon, and it's very obviously it's an animated character in a cube, but it's clearly Tony Baxter's face is the character. So I don't know if that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I just want so they definitely when Phil Holmes was transferred, they didn't put the new vice president, Dan Cockrell, and now it's a new vice president.
And now Dan's out. So
yeah.
So what are you going to do? Yeah, that's an interesting thing, man. I knew that picture existed. I didn't realize. Yeah, I guess that's there to stay. And now it's going to have its own story, probably. You know how Imagineers change stories. They stories have been changed for like the carousel at Magic Kingdom and other things. They changed the stories to kind of fit the narrative. So,
here's a cool idea.
Put a mustache on them and make them somebody else.
What we should do is put a call out to the listeners and say, when next time you get a chance to visit Bonjour Village Gifts in Magic Kingdom, ask the cast members there who that person is on the wall and to see what the response is. And if they write you back with the response, give them like $50 off the next vacation they book with you. Like, because you charge for that, all that service you do, right? For all like the bookings of the fast passes and the dining reservations. And, you have to charge them when you give them the quote to like put $50 off that whole service pack you have.
I think you and I we've talked about this, right? That I don't charge for my services at all.
Oh,
I thought
you mean like, wait, you mean for all the stuff you do, like the Magic Express bookings and the hotel bookings and the dining,
personalized itinerary.
Yeah, the Gator tour. You don't book. You don't charge for all that.
No, well, I thought you and I we've sat down and we've had this conversation before that it's all complimentary. It's included.
Oh man, I tell you, I don't know what's going on, man. I got to quit that job at the glue factory, man.
With Homer.
Yeah, the fumes are getting to me evidently.
And Grandma, and whatever she's making you for dinner, you have to stop eating. I don't know. I think
we had Nutria stew over there the other day, man. Nutria stew over at Grandma's place. You know what Nutria is?
Isn't that rat?
Yeah, it's invasive down here.
It's a rat.
You get $5 a tail when the Fish and Wildlife Commission.
Yeah, you got to stop eating that, man. I think it has chemicals in it. Something's going on.
Maybe it's GMO.
Maybe sewer rat stew. I don't know.
She told me it was organic.
Yeah, listen. The more I hear about her, the more I worry about you. I got to be honest with you.
Yeah, I was picking buckshot out of my teeth for a couple of days after that.
All right. Well, I got to give my last one. So, okay. Actually, it's a cool way to kind of to finish it. But then I have two more. I have one more and then an honorable mention. My last one is at Carousel of Progress. And this is a cool thing. If you're on Carousel of Progress and you go to the last room, which is I don't even know how to describe it now, the last show scene. It was supposed to be modern day, and then it can't keep up with modern day, right? Because they're still doing, they're all dressed in like neon clothes, and there's a couple things actually work, like the talking. You talk to the oven, that kind of reminds me of Alexa or Siri or something like that. Now, there's a part when they do they dim the Christmas tree lights, like Christmas tree lights, 30% brighter, and they get brighter. And I can do that in my house, amazingly. Like we have the Alexa app and the light bulbs hooked up to us, so I can tell the Alexa thing to drop the lights and all that. It's pretty cool. Anyway, so where was I going with that? So,
can you tell Alexa to drop the toilet seat?
No privacy at all around here. That's my best Uncle Orville impression. It wasn't good. But there's yeah. I was like expecting maybe a chuckle. I got nothing out of you on that one. There's
I had to shut the mic off because I was laughing so hard.
I'm sure. Yeah. So in the last scene, the mom is sitting over by like a computer and there's a desk, and this is a really hard, difficult thing to catch, but I really think it's cool. There's like a not a bulletin board. I guess, yeah, it is like a bulletin board where you, like a pin board or something. And there's a sticky note on it that says, it's like a Post-it note that says, Marty called once changes. And that's all it says. Marty called once changes. And it's an actual, it's a like a little tribute to Marty Sklar, who started with Disneyland in 1955 and was the head of Walt Disney Imagineering for years and years, and retired. I don't know how long ago. Passed away a few years ago. Not a few years ago. No, last year actually. A few years ago. Nothing. Last summer. And it, there are lots of famous stories about Marty Sklar walking through attractions that had just been finished and him changing all kinds of things. There's a really famous one of him walking through World Showcase in Epcot in, it was 82? Yeah, 82. And saying that there was no soot on the chimneys in the UK pavilion, and said, that these chimneys would have to have soot on them, so they put soot on them. It's a really cool thing. So it's a neat little tribute to Marty. It's in the attraction. It's super hard to see. But yeah, it's a little post-it note on the bulletin board that says, Marty called once changes. So I thought that was a really cool little thing. And it's been there, as far as I know, for years and years and years. So I thought that one was cool.
Do you think that was like a nod of appreciation or like a dig? That's all we got from this guy. He's never happy.
I think a little from column A, a little from column B, really. Yeah. Listen, I met him very, very briefly, and he was so nice and so gracious, and signed a book that I had and talked to me for a couple of minutes. I got lucky that I got to the table, the spot where he was at the D23 Expo, and nobody else realized he was there. So it was just me, the two of us talking for a couple of minutes. And it was just really, really cool to get to meet him and to talk to him. But I've heard from other people and from people who have worked with him that, he wasn't a stickler, but he wanted things to be done the way he wanted them to be done. So I think you're right, man. I think it's a little from column A, a little from column B.
I was walking through Disneyland one time. I was by myself, and I just happened to see this little old guy walking through the park in a suit, and it kind of took me back for a second. And then he had a name tag on and said Marty. I was like, oh my goodness, that's Marty Sklar. So I double backed and went over and said hello to him, and he was cool. He talked to me for about a minute. We shot shooting the breeze, and then I said, thank you for. Yeah, I was going to say something else, but I remember you keep this podcast G-rated here, and so I thought, wow, what a cool dude! Like, I just shook the hands of a guy who shook the hands with Walt Disney, and that's kind of a neat thing. But yeah, what a cool guy, and I never worked with him, so I don't know, but I've heard the same stories you've heard, so I think it is kind of funny that. It may have been a little column A, a little column B.
I think it's a little shot from whoever was on that attraction that one day. I bet he saw it and laughed and probably was into it at the same time. It's pretty fun. And my honorable mention was there's over by the Mad Tea Party, there's a leaf plaque in the bushes that's from a former Imagineer named Randy Pausch. He was a guy that worked on the attractions for Disney Quest. He did like the virtual, I think the virtual Jungle Cruise or something like that. I wasn't a big Disney Quest guy, but he did. He tried to get into Imagineering for years and years. He was a professor at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh, and he was a guy that got into Imagineering late in his life. And he tragically kind of passed away, I think from pancreatic cancer. I don't know, I may be wrong about that, but some kind of cancer in his early 40s. But before that, he got the chance to be an Imagineer, and he got a chance to do this thing called the Last Lecture, which was a kind of a presentation that these professors got to do at Carnegie Mellon, and they were supposed to give a lecture to the auditorium as if it was the last thing they would ever do. Well, he found out that he had terminal cancer before he actually did it. So literally it was his chance to have a last lecture for the people who were there. And if you haven't seen it on YouTube, if you haven't read the book, it became a bestseller, his book that was based on that speech. And I mean, if you haven't seen it on YouTube, Google it, YouTube it, watch it. It's a phenomenal lecture. It's I think it's like an hour and 40 minutes long. It's really, really worth listening to and watching. But the leaf says it's a plaque, and it's an honor to him because he was an Imagineer. And it says, be good at something. It makes you valuable. Have something to bring to the table because that will make you more welcome. And it's a rare, very, very, very rare tribute because it has his name on it. It's a really super rare tribute to an Imagineer inside a park because usually those guys can't sign their work. Their names aren't anywhere kind of in the parks except for, little tiny tributes that don't have their full names. So it's a really, really cool thing. And he was a super inspirational guy. So yeah, I think it's a neat thing to go find when you're in Fantasyland. Go over by Mad Tea Party and look for the leaf sculpture in the bushes, and definitely watch that. I think that video definitely gave me, and I watched it several times. It gives me like a new kind of outlook, and it makes you appreciate life a bit more, and it's a really, really cool thing.
I haven't heard of that, and I think that's really neat that they did that because, obviously other than incorporating the Imagineer into the storyline, like it's like famously done at Haunted Mansion, or seeing the windows on Main Street, I didn't really realize that there was stuff like that was done to commemorate the Imagineers in a way like that. I like that they're doing that, or they at least did it, and hopefully they'll do more of that because I think that's a cool way to kind of leave that legacy of people who really. I mean, these are, in many cases, some of these are people who you don't know their names, but they have such a huge impact on making sure that everything that we are experiencing as guests is continuing to improve and stays true to what Walt wanted to have that experience to be for us. That's really cool that they're doing that.
Yeah, no, it goes back to a Walt Disney thing, right? Like where you don't sign your work. Like these things, they were built by teams. Like talking about. I've talked about Rolly Crump and Bob Gurr and people like Mary Blair and Mark Davis. They didn't get a chance to sign their work. They worked as a team. They put these attractions out. These amazing things they put together, and it was all about the team and all about the company. And it wasn't about the individual. But then I think later on, people started realizing, well, these people did this incredible thing. So they put tributes to them throughout the park, and they've done that. Like, you'll see tributes to Mark Davis in Pirates, or you'll see tributes to, Claude Coates in the park, and you'll see tributes to, I don't know if Rolly Crump has his name. Oh yeah, he does. He has, the tombstones over Haunted Mansion. Like they have gotten noticed, they have gotten their names out there, even though they haven't been able to put their names, on the things that they did. Like, you have all the tombstones and Ex Atencio and Mark Davis and Leota Toombs and all these amazing Imagineers. So, yeah, I agree. I think it's cool that something like that has his full name on it and it has a quote. And, it's a neat thing. But it's neat that Imagineers are for years and years and years, they weren't, like I've talked to Bob Gurr for hours and hours and hours, and he always says, we were doing our jobs. Like, it wasn't a thing. Like, we never thought this would be a big deal. And now these guys they're legends. They're people that everybody wants to talk to. So, yeah, it's a neat thing, and I'm glad they do it.
Yeah, and I'm going to definitely check that one out because I had never heard of that one. So that's a neat little nugget you're sharing now.
Yeah, man, watch the last lecture. I know you don't. Neither of us have an hour and a half to spend on anything, but spend an hour and a half at some point on, a night that you can't sleep or something and watch it. It's crazy worth it. It will give you a new outlook. It really did for me. It gave me a new outlook on life and what I value and what's important to me. When you hear a guy who literally is dying of cancer talk about what is important in life, when you're kind of looking at a couple weeks, a couple months, who knows? It's an amazing thing. and he's so articulate and so intelligent, and it's really cool. I don't want to end it on a down note. Excuse me. So, even though it's kind of a positive note, but since we're done and we talked about everything, I know that I'd really like to give you a couple minutes to plug something at the end. So what's going on in your life? What do you have going on that you'd like to kind of plug on the show?
Oh man. Well, you have a second? I mean,
yeah,
I don't want to
absolutely.
take up too much time.
No.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, I don't like to, pump my own stuff because, I don't got a lot of cool stuff going on. Just kind of, living one day at a time, one foot in front of the other, keeping it 100. You know what I mean? And but I got a good buddy of mine. His name is Richard. This dude's doing some amazing stuff. He's got this little nonprofit here in town. I don't know if I told you about them or not. It's called the National Moped Association. Nonprofit. They're based in Orlando, 501c3 organization, tax deductible. So, talk to your accountant. You can go ahead and make some regular deductions through like payroll, automatic payroll deductions. It's all tax deductible. It's good stuff, good people. Safety is the focus. They're doing great work because it's a huge concern. A lot of stuff's going on right now. And I was talking to Richard the other day about this, and you're talking about YouTube and just kind of like seeing inspirational stuff. He pointed me to something on YouTube that just made my stomach sink, man. Go search this out. I think like if you use the keywords like, oh goodness, I think it's like Orlando Moped Red Light Challenge. It's frightening. It's like the worst horror movie you've ever seen. What's going on right now is we got some knuckleheads here in Central Florida on the mopeds, and they think because we got a lot of red light cameras here in Orlando. Just heads up, FYI. Make sure you tell your Goober driver not to run a red light if you're down here in Orlando, because we got a lot of red light cameras. Let's check this out, man. What these people are doing on the mopeds is they're running the red lights intentionally because they don't want to wait. They have right hand on the throttle, and they lean back with the left hand and cover the license plate so that when they go through the intersection and the picture's taken, the cops don't know who it is. That sounds great, right? Sounds kind of interesting. It's not, man. On the YouTube channel, somebody from the Orange County Sheriff's put a compilation of videos of these knuckleheads doing this. And when they're doing is when they're leaning back with the left hand to cover the license plate, they're tilting the steering wheel just enough, the handlebars just enough, and they will go end over end, wiping out right in the middle of the intersection. I mean, it's gruesome stuff. It's like, do you remember? Did you take woodshop back in the day in middle school? Like, blood on the bandsaw. Remember that video?
I never had woodshop. Never.
Really?
No, we didn't have. I didn't grow up in where you did. I grew up in a city. We didn't have to learn that kind of thing.
Wait, so you didn't have woodshop? You didn't have marksmanship? You didn't have stone cutting? What did you do?
Yeah, we had Latin. I went to a Catholic school.
What?
We learned Latin and we learned theology and
what
a couple of those other. Yeah, those words.
Speaking foreign languages now? What?
Yeah, those things that you'll never use.
Theology, is that the study of Theo Cosby? What is?
See, that actually would have been helpful, but the marksmanship and the woodshop would have been helpful for me as a man because I would have had a toolbox before I turned 39 years old.
I know. Stone cutting is something. Like stone cutting was one of those classes where every kid said, when am I ever going to use this when I grow up? I use stone cutting every day. I mean, it's a lot of like logic, and you're thinking about things and you apply that logic. Anyway, back to the mopeds. So they so what's going on with Richard is they're trying to get the word out. They had the ALEC notices. ALEC, it's an acronym for Act Like You Know, Chico. And with these notices, they send them out here. It's a text message, SMS, data rates apply if you're a mobile carrier. They're just alerting the owners and the operators to make sure that if you see this, make sure you are diligent because if you see it and you don't say something, that means you sign off on it. And we don't want you signing off and co-signing on anyone behaving this way. This is unsafe. people are getting hurt, and emergency rooms are flooded with, unfortunately, with moped owners and operators who are doing the red light challenge here in Orlando. It's got to stop. Tell your friends, spread the word. I mean, this is really getting to the point where it's becoming an epidemic now. And thankfully, the folks at the National Moped Association are working diligently around the clock to get the word out and educate. So I hope they kept it tight, like 30 seconds. But thank you, man. I appreciate it.
I think you came in right under the 30 seconds, so it's good.
Oh, I was worried, man. I thought I was getting a little breathy there for a while.
Well, thanks, man. I know people appreciate the latest news, and I do think you have mentioned them before, but I appreciate it.
Really? Oh, shoot! I'm sorry.
All right, man. Well, thanks again for the heads up on that, and thank you for coming on. And yeah, I think I apologized to my last couple of shows that people were asking where you were, and I had to tell people I've canceled on the poor guy like 75 times in a row. So I'm so happy to get you back on the show, and this is a lot of fun. And thanks again for doing it.
Yeah, right on.
And that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ear to There Disney Podcast. Thank you to my co-host, to my guest, to my friend, to the guy who I haven't spoken to in forever, Johnny Shortsleeve. These are always such a blast to do with him, and I've missed him on the show. I know you've missed him on the show. Maybe if I can get my act together and get a few weeks ahead of this thing, well, I won't have to cancel on him. We can get him on a lot more often. So thank you, Johnny, for coming on. Thank you again to Bob Gurr for answering yet another question on the show. And again, thank you for listening. I mean, really, I really appreciate it. Every week I hear from new people, new listeners. It's been an amazing experience. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening. These are so much fun. I thought maybe at the beginning I put out an episode or two. Here I am, 124 official episodes later, plus another, 75, 80, like additional bonus episodes, including the words of the week. And it's a food world. I mean, really, it's crazy. So thank you so much for listening to this episode, to any episode you've listened to. You are awesome. You're the reason why I do it. I love getting messages from everyone. I mean, geez, I get an email recently from someone who downloaded a whole bunch of the episodes of the show and listened in places like Indonesia and Malawi. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, I apologize. I've heard from people in England. I've heard from people in Australia. I've heard from someone in Iraq. Someone in Iraq sent me an email to tell me how much they appreciate the show. That was a member of the U.S. military. I mean, crazy. So thank you so much to each and every single one of you for listening. It's been just an incredible thing. So I'm not even going to ask anything from you this week because it's such an incredible kind of thing. And I just want you to enjoy the episode and listen, and go listen to some more old ones. These are re-listenable, so I've heard. Now I'm getting cocky. No, they're not. Thank you again for listening. Until next time, have yourself a phenomenal week. Bye-bye.